30 years ago today, Uganda was beginning to heal from the scars of a war of attrition in the Luwero Triangle. A new crop of leftist-leaning officials led by Yoweri Museveni had embraced neoliberal policies which appeared like a benign form of moral reparations by imperial powers to the rest of Africa. 6 years after capturing power, the NRM government and its elite leaders postured as liberators who espoused values of free speech and media, liberal democracy and rule of law. By 1992, FM radios and private televisions proliferated as the NRM government tried to show it was not eager to stifle free speech. By 1992, FM radio and private televisions proliferated as the NRM tried to show that it was not eager to stifle free speech. Amongst the publications that thrived was the Weekly Topic. It was led by three leftist-leaning adherents: former Uganda's Prime Minister Chintu Musoke, former Deputy Premier the late Chirunda Chivejinja, and former Local Government Minister Jaberi Bidandi Sali. But some of the Weekly Topics editors and reporters felt that the owners of the newspaper were joined at the hip with the government and couldn't offer an independent platform for bold reporting that speaks truth to power.
When the three of them eventually joined government, it became difficult to continue. We had been continuing, we have been working. So we did some story somewhere, very hard editorial to do with the project of Ujagari power project, and where there had been some minister who was involved in corruption. And we were telling Museveni to stop crying about corruption. He should use an iron fist. Apparently Museveni was very angry about that because we are like lecturing him. I think he also asked his ministers what was that. And so one afternoon, one of the founders came to Weekly Topic and said, they called a meeting for the editorial in the basement, and they said, me, I'd been promoted to a director for projects, and I was not allowed anywhere near the editorial.
This editorial turmoil spilled into the newsroom, and some of the newspaper editors left to start the Monitor.
My friend Charles then was in Harvard. He was doing a fellowship in Harvard. And so I talked to Charles, I talked to Che, the late Che. I said, I thought I was thinking of starting a newspaper instead of to augment what Weekly Topic was doing and to do it almost the way they were doing it in the Weekly Topic. Earlier they had asked me to think of how to reform the Weekly Topic and how to make it better, which ideas hadn't even presented. So when I told them, they said, but so you are leaving the Weekly Topic? I said, yes, I'm going to leave the Weekly Topic. So I sat in my office for a week, and I eventually told one of the people there that I think I want to leave. And when they asked me, was I serious? I said yes. And they said if I left, they would leave.
Amongst the 7 founders, 3, namely Ogen Kevin Alido, Richard Tebere, and Teddy Sezicheye, are deceased. The others are Wafula Ogutu, David Oumabalikowa, Charles Onyango-Bo, and Jimmy Serugo.
The office you went to in the Kamukam Plaza, it was a basement, it was a store of my friend John Ndiabaje. John Ndiabaje is a very close friend of mine. And me and Ruzindana, we are close. Ndiabaje and Ruzindana, even the name Monitor came from the three of us when we met in Luzira, in Ruzindana's home. Our name was originally The Flame. To express our radicalism, we're boiling in our heads. And you see, Ruzindana, the normal one, said, no, please, that is too radical. In any case, we found out later somebody had registered The Flame before. So we settled for the flame. Yeah, the monitor. Now,
Onapito Ekomoloit, the Legal and Corporate Affairs Director at the Nile Breweries, was amongst the budding scribes who left Weekly Topic to join the Monitor. Reading from a manuscript of his autobiography, he revealed that
in 1992, the publishers could apparently not bite the hand that fed them anymore. They ordered their editors to tone down criticism of government in which they were ministers. The editors refused to back down and walked out. Within a short time, the Topic editors founded the Monitor in July 1992 as their own independent newspaper. As a correspondent, my loyalty at Weekly Topic had lain with the editors. I seamlessly moved to the Monitor, becoming one of the pioneer reporters. My first story was published in the second edition of the Monitor. It was a back-breaking life then being a reporter. We hand-wrote stories. There was only one typist, Cecilia Arionget, to churn out stories for the attention of editors. The edited stories were typeset and then pasted into columns to form newspaper pages. All this was done manually.
Charles Onyangobo was my lecturer at Makerere University. And I was interning at the Weekly Topic. So at the Weekly Topic, I was doing my internship and as well as working as a proofreader. And so when Charles, Wafula Ogutu, Richard Tebere, Kevin Aliro, James Serugo, when they left the Weekly Topic to start the Daily Monitor, I mean, it was just, when they said that this is what we're going to do, then it just became natural for me to just say, okay.
we have done our stories. Where are we going to print from? So I go to my friend William Pike, the editor of the New Vision, the paper which I declined to edit. And I told him, William, you have been hearing stories, you have published them. We are starting a newspaper, we have no money. But print for us one issue, and maybe a second issue, maybe a third issue, we shall pay. He said, surely. I said, yes. So, that is settled of printing. It is settled of types of typesetting.
On the day the newspaper went to bed, ready for printing, we reporters stayed in the office until the wee hours to make sure everything was okay with our stories. The prospect of seeing your story in the newspaper the next day was so exciting that you hardly noticed the night turn into daybreak in the office. We held our editors in awe as wordsmiths.
They were very, very humbling. I mean, you walk in, and if there's nowhere to sit, basically, there's nowhere to sit. You either stand or you stand outside, because it was very, very humble beginnings. Obviously, then from there, they moved to the office moved to De Winton Road, opposite the National Theatre, upstairs. It was still a bit of a squeeze, but at least now you could see that progress was being made. Progress was being made. The paper was coming out more regularly, and so for me, my initial thoughts on the Daily Monitor was that, one, it was really humble. It was really humble. All you had was the passion and the desire of these five, and I think David Oma Balikoa, who was also my lecturer at the university, I think joined them there as well. It was just their desire for, I think, what I would call truth and pure journalism.
The last thing we wanted for starting Monitor was money. No, we did not want to make money, to be rich people, no. We wanted it to satisfy our professional enthusiasm.
In its humble place of abode on Entebbe Road and later Dewington Road, the Monitor offered a distinguished provenance. It also carried a high tapestry of bold reporting, politics, features, satire, and sports. The newspaper was also able to look into crystal balls and predict what was about to unfold. Its first headline carried an editorialized piece, "This privatization thing stinks." The late Richard Tebe wrote, and I quote, "Privatization has come to Uganda, and in a big way. Government officials, with an accustomed alacrity, are falling over each other to sell off over 100 public enterprises whose actual owners are the people of Uganda. A few months ago, an advert was placed in European papers listing the number of Ugandan parastatals to be sold off to the private sector without the approval of the NRC nor the cabinet. On the face of it, it makes a lot of sense. For why should taxpayers continue to subsidize loss-making and corruption-riddled corporations?" 30 years later, what the Monitor predicted prophetically in its first edition came to pass. In December 2020, government closed the privatization unit, which failed to deliver the lofty dreams of efficiently run blue-chip private firms anchored on private enterprise. On the contrary, privatization, which was part of the Bretton Woods Institution Structural Adjustment Program SAP, became the poster child of graft in Uganda as public parastatals were stripped of their assets by powerful individuals in government, which led to their collapse. Amongst them was Uganda Airlines, Uganda Railway Corporation, and Uganda Commercial Bank Limited. The owners of the Monitor identified themselves as egalitarians that were keen to show that beneath the veneer of liberation and statecraft, the NRM and its leaders were not entirely squeaky clean. The NRM, barely 6 years after capturing power, had attempted to dress itself in a puritanical image whose clarion call was to free Ugandans from the shackles of bondage and sins of the past regime. On the contrary, the stories that were published by the Monitor showed a corrupt elite at the steering wheel of a chaotic state. Through Legal Notice No. 1 issued in March 1986, the NRM banned political parties. The Monitor was then branded a radical platform to sustain the opposition. A number of its journalists were often hauled before courts of law and detained on allegations of flouting draconian provisions such as sedition and the publication of false news. James Nangwala was a young astute lawyer whose profile was rising.
First of all, from inception, Monitor Publications had a very strong foundation. The original shareholders, come directors as they were dedicated men. It's not gender insensitivity, I believe there was no woman. They were dedicated men. They set up this company not as a businessman as such, but with a view to advancing the profession of journalism.
Like a fitting glove, he became the company's troubleshooter in the courts of law.
Even the offenses with which they were charged would not pass as such criminal cases. So one of the challenges I had was time and again to appear in a criminal court to represent these editors. Now, at that time, the state had to clamp on or to gag free expression using a notorious section which was section 50 of the Penal Code, publishing false news. Now, I discussed with the then culprits the possibility of challenging that section in the Constitutional Court, because looking at its provisions, its wording, it didn't appear to pass the test of a criminal offense the way we know criminal offenses.
Finally, in 1993, the hammer fell on the Monitor as government imposed an advertising ban on the newspaper. Those who crafted this ban believed that this would push the newspaper into a financial chokehold. However, the newspaper outlived the ban. On the contrary, sales grew, and by November 1996, the paper went daily. The state ended its ban in 1997.
Anyway, that eventually also went off because I think Dr. Rugunda was the Minister of Information, and he came to visit me at the Monitor, and I said, Dr. Rugunda, you are coming to visit me, an organization you wanted to kill 4 years ago. We have refused to die. That's why you are here. This building belongs to us. The machine down there, they belong to us. Well, despite the fact that you wanted to kill us economically, the public and the business community supported us. We are here, and we hate you. My staff hate you because you wanted to take their jobs away. They hate you. And if you want to make peace with them, remove that ban. And he laughed, I said, okay. And eventually they removed the ban. So we began receiving the advertising from government.
In March 2000, it was announced that the Monitor had been bought by Nation Media Group, the largest media house in East Africa.
What motivated us was our own history here in Kenya. The Nation was set up on a platform of change or transformation, a platform that would provide an alternative voice to the majority population that was clamoring for self-determination. So that was, and then of course, the Nation's vision has always been to the media of Africa for Africa. So the best way to do that is to venture further afield. So where do you go to? So when we looked across the border and saw the Monitor the way it was, we did quite a bit of research actually, talked to a lot of people, got a lot of advice, and their philosophy, ideals and principles seems to align themselves very well with our own. So we took the plunge, and here we are today.
The newspaper's name was changed to Daily Monitor. The vision to sell to a larger brand was premised on the survivorship of the newspaper amidst a hostile environment.
We have been shut down. Journalists have been harassed, some of them sent to jail, but we have always managed to get up and do the thing that we do best, thanks to the courage of the boys and girls at the Monitor. They have continued pushing the agenda of change and giving that very critical voice that has been that always misses in democracies or in situations that are too tightly controlled. So we feel we have been vindicated in terms of playing our role as an agent of transformation and a community builder and as a forum that creates enough space for people to talk to each other, to talk to government, and to look for solutions together.
The biggest test for the Monitor has been the issue of survival. The fact that the Monitor has survived is an attestation to its quality as an alternative source of news. It is an attestation to its strong values as part of the fourth estate of this country, and it is an attestation to the ability of the founders to weather the storms that they have weathered and stand the test of times.
The Monitor has since relocated to the 8th Street in industrial area, which houses KFM and Dembe FM. It also has a sister publication, the East African newspaper, NTV Uganda, and Nation Couriers under the NMG Uganda stable. Despite the challenges afflicting legacy media such as a drastic drop in conventional advertising models and technology, which has disrupted the truth, the Monitor continues to flourish, offering bold and enterprise journalism.
For me starts as far back as 1983, when I was an intern at what was then the Weekly Topic, which was run from the then so-called Sapoba Bookshop Press. And as an accounts clerk there, I got to know some of the characters who worked with the weekly topic and then went on to found the Monitor publication. Notable among them was Wafula Ogutu, Charles Onyango Bo, and a few others. So these are some of the characters I met then. Later on, when they founded the Monitor, I had also moved on to other things. So for me to be here today speaking about the Monitor means that I have come back full cycle. And it has been quite a roller coaster. Clashes with the government, disagreements about what the editorial policy should be and the direction of the newspaper should be.
Legacy newsrooms today face an existential threat. With narrowing audiences who are fed content through an algorithm, mainstream media must find its place as an objective, gatekeeping chronicler of the truth. But it must also experiment with different formats and business models. Whereas the older generation remains anchored in the traditional setup of news, content must fit within the spirit that appeals to younger readers.